Oh, hello there. Good night and welcome back to our series. Today we are going to talk about some things I've been thinking as always, and it's I forgot to tell you it's my MDJ series, which is an acronym for my daily journal. It isn't actually daily, it's very rarely to see me recording here. But in any case, it's how the series is called now. Well, I've been willing to talk about some things I've been looking and realizing in my language learning routine. Well, as you guys probably know from the last video, I started to learn Latin, and now I'm learning French, Latin, and English. But today I want to talk more specifically about English and how I'm approaching my English studies. Um, I am willing to develop an RP accent, and that's what I'm working for. I'm trying to do sort of an accent reduction and also at the same time learn the proper pronunciation of some words. But I'm willing to do this accent reduction because I want to sound more native like in certain sense, and I just like the accent itself, and I want to sound like a person with this accent. I want to have this accent. The accent I'm talking about and I'm looking for is the received pronunciation. Well, in the UK, there are lots of accents, but I'm looking towards the RP accent more specifically. So I use some strategies to study multiple languages at once. They differ sometimes, like I use different strategies to different purpose. And for example, my French studies are completely different from the my English studies. My French studies are one thing, my English studies are completely different thing. And then my Latin studies is also different from the two. And but one thing that I've used and I do use right now is to have multiple accounts for language learning. If you prepare an account per language, it will be much more easy actually. It will be easier to enjoy contents in the language and to study more specifically that language, because you can study without this strategy, but it can make things messy when you increase the number of languages. In the language learning community, people talk a lot about immersion and why should you immerse. I've talked about here some month months ago. Yeah, I think I've talked about why should we immerse, and I do share most of the same thoughts that I've shared. I do agree with myself, not surprisingly, but I still have the same um, overall thinking about it, even though I'm thinking more specifically about the immersion method and how one should approach it. Because it seems to me that sometimes we do not have the time to do so. And I'd not say that, like, honestly, I'd not say that as an excuse, but rather as a thing to think about. How much time do you want to put into a language learning activity? Some people do not want to put any time in it, and therefore they do not learn language, and that's okay. It's their choice, right? You are not forced into learn any language, or at least you shouldn't be. But the point is that sometimes the immersion method doesn't work because the person don't want to immerse. Um, but at any case, whether you use this method or not, to have multiple accounts to different languages is quite useful. I've said here some time ago that I've different accounts. So I have my main account, which I use for all types of content, but there are mainly Portuguese content, which is my native language. I'm Brazilian. There is also the second account, which is this one, in which I'm publishing this video here. This account is for English only content. So when I see something that aren't that isn't, sorry, English content, I instantly click there to not recommend it again, because I want to have this account for English only content. I will explain later, but I'm not being too rigid on this account anymore because I'm not using this specific account of the Leonard Legatus account that much, because I will explain why. Um, and then there is also my French account. I have an account just to have French input, so I have no other language there. The same thing, if I see a content either in English, Portuguese, any language at all, I click there that isn't French, and I click there and to not show it again. So I can be able to have a French content only account. And then more recently, I think, I've created another account which isn't for Latin, but instead, sorry, an accent slip is lit up. Instead is for um, British only content, more specifically, um, contents of people who have a British accent. Um, and why have I done that? And why haven't I stick it to my account, Leonard Legatus, if I already have it? Because I want to develop a British accent. I want to develop an RP or RP accent. And to do so, I need to have this account. I found myself watching many different content, so I need to structure more. So in the Leonard Legatos account, there is a lot of channels from different nationalities. There are some channels from United States, other channels from Canada, other channels from Australia. I do consume a lot of content from Australian because Evil Dia is from Australia, and I consume a lot of content of his. I quite enjoy it. Actually, it isn't probably lately. It's probably the only content that I'm watching in English that are not from the UK. So I'm watching content in English from the UK and Evil Deer. That's pretty much it. But then you have this idea there of sparing things. So as I'm willing to have a British accent, it's optimal if my listen is leans toward the British accent, because you will speak more likely what you hear very often. Obviously, you need to practice speaking specifically and separately, but if you listen a lot, that will help you to sound more like um, what you listen to and what you want to sound. If you listen what you want to sound, obviously, um, but then that will help you. And I found that it is helping me. It's making my accent more authentic, and I'm getting better in it. But then, as I said, I've created this account there. So what I've done is that in this account, I do not allow myself to watch any content that isn't um, with a British accent. If the person who's talking is Australian or from the United States or Canadian, I will say I'm sorry, but I'm learning English with the British accent. And then I will stop it, watch it. If I do want to watch the video, I will um, put it in a playlist to watch in another channel later. But that's my strategy. Um, and I've realized that it is quite difficult to find good British channels out there. There are like the internet have a lot of American accent content or other accents, because English is nowadays the language that most people talk in the internet. You will have people from completely different nationalities talking with English, using English to communicate. And they talk like they do many things. You can find channels of Brazilians playing in English, for example, or talking in English. You can easily find channels of people from Spain, people from Asia, any parts of the world, really, using this as sort of using English as a language of communication. And yeah, it's quite common because English is now the um, dominant language in the world. And there are a lot of content in the American accent, but I found hard to find British content, like found content with the British accent, because there are so many other contents out there that content with a British accent becomes really hard to find sometimes. I know that there are a lot of British channels out there. I know that, but the problem is to find them, because if you search for British English, for example, it will be appearing a lot of content teaching you British English, which is very great. I follow many channels, all that I can find that teach uh, English with a British accent. But the problem is, I do not want to have only this type of content, because I want to enjoy myself watching content in the British accent. Like I want to watch content in with the British accent to enjoy myself. And to do so, I need to search for it because it's very hard. So I like mathematics, and I find hard to find a lot of content in about mathematics with the British accent. I know there are many channels out there, and I follow some. I follow Number File, for example, and all the people who talk about mathematics, and they have the British accent. But still, it's very hard because it's hard to search for it. I think I need to search more specifically, but then the YouTube doesn't differentiate quite well the American and the British accent. So I'm trying to train my algorithm to just send me British content, but it isn't being able to understand what I'm willing it to do, and I found very frustrating sometimes. And there is another problem as well. You need to get really good into recognize accents. For example, I need to listen to an accent and try to guess where the person is. And sometimes you've listened to it and you think the person is from UK, and the person actually isn't from UK. The person is from USA or Canada or Australia, sorry, or any country out there. And it's hard because I want to specifically develop the British accent, and I do not want my accent to be a mixture of many accents, because that can make my accent hard to recognize, that it can make it hard to understand. And as a personal accomplishment, I wish to be able to talk with the British accent, and with the British accent only. I not want to talk with a partial British accent that is kind of a British accent but not as well as a British accent properly. I know all this accent stuff is very polemical, and it can be very problematic to say that you want a specific accent, because some people say that you shouldn't try to reduce your accent. But the truth is, each one makes what they want with the language, and I want to have this accent, so that's it. And I found it very hard to find content sometimes. But recently, I've been finding a lot of good channels in with the British accent. I really am doing this, and I'm enjoying quite a lot because I'm being able to find so many interesting people in the internet that talk about different things. Um, I like it. I like to watch etiquette rules and videos about it, and I've saw many videos before about American etiquette, and with the presenter being an American, and I've never found before a content about it in the in with the British accent, but I found it today a very fine and awesome YouTuber, in which I'm watching his content. I'm quite enjoying. So another thing that I've been realizing is that there are a lot of teachers in the UK, teachers of English more specifically, that record videos for the internet. I've reached somewhat intermediate level of English overall, but I think my listening skills are better than the other skills that I have. My reading and my listening is far better than my speaking, and I can pretty much watch any kind of content in the YouTube without any problem, and even moves like movies and not moves. I always am confused between the words moves and movies. I get it wrong a lot, but what I mean is I watch movies without any further problem, and that's great, right? So my listening skills are somewhat very proficient already, and sometimes I do not think that watch content about English teaching will be as effective for me because it is interesting, and I do like to study grammar for fun, to study pronunciation for fun. Like, there are some channels of people who analyzes speech patterns and pronunciation and drills and how you can have this specific accent or that specific accent and do some things here and there that talks about the IPA chart and many things. I enjoy all of this, but I found that sometimes it may not be that effective. Firstly, because although I'm enjoying, I'm not willing to watch only this type of content. I want to have another type of content as well, which without I do not need to think that much about learning English, and I just consume content in English. And to be able to do so, I'm I ought to search for it, and it's hard. But as I was saying, like UK have a lot of teachers that teach English through the internet, and I found that amazing. But it's hard sometimes to find authentic content because some teachers create content to learn us, and that's important for me as a learner, but I need to challenge myself. And as I've got to a reasonable level, a proficient level already in my listening, I need to find more. I need to be more challenged in order to improve my listening and my speaking and everything. And sometimes the teachers do not do that because they are focused, and don't get me wrong, that's great, but they are focused on a more beginner or intermediate level. Then I need to work for myself, trying to find content that I enjoy. And that's it. That's pretty much it. The problem that I'm coping with, the problem that I'm having. But as I said, recently I'm quite enjoying because I've found many content, many YouTubers, a lot of content that I do enjoy, and I'm having a really great time with it. Um, yeah, that's it. I think my pronunciation is getting better. As you can see there, I trying to talk as I want to. It's hard sometimes. Sometimes I do an accent slip here and there. Sometimes I mixture up some accents. I say some things as an American would say instead of a Brit would say, and I you see, I have problems with this word, but I mixture those in my accent, which can be very confusing sometimes, but I'm working on it. And sometimes I can do an accent slip of my Brazilian accent, and I do say some things, and like, um, in Brazil and the Portuguese language, we do not have like ends of the word in consonants. You have like words finishing in consonant, but what I mean is that we do not have the sounds of words as we do in English. For example, teeth is a word that finishes with right, with the th sound. Teeth in Portuguese would be more like teeth, teeth, something more like that, because we tend to put some vowels after a consonant. That's how the language works. And then sometimes I do say some words like that. Instead of teeth, I could say teethy, and then I realize my mistake. but those accent slips happens. Um, I wish to start to speaking more, improve my speaking pronunciation, my pronunciation actually overall. But then I'm found myself recalling this video and I realizing that perhaps um, my accent and pronunciation are getting better, but not necessarily my speaking skills. Because I'm found myself quite hard. I found quite hard to say what I mean sometimes, and I'm committing a lot of grammatical mistakes that I know I'm aware of committing those, but when I speak, the language does not goes as I want to. Sometimes I'm having some troubles choosing the proper words to talk and to convey the meaning that I want to convey. And that's I think that I'm looking for to improve. Um, I'm not having a lot of time with my English as I want to. I don't know. I already have some time with English, but it's hard to dedicate active time for English sometimes. And that's a thing that I really need to work on. Learning three languages is not necessarily that easy. However, I do not want to learn French to a high level of proficiency right now, nor do I want to learn Latin into a high level of proficiency. I want to get a knowledge into those both languages and improve at my English mainly. Well, that's pretty much it. I think I must practice more speaking and more reading probably as well would be a great thing to do, but more reading and like, yeah, more speaking and writing than anything. I think I'm still doing some writings here and there, but sometimes my speaking is getting a little bit oversee overseeing, and I need to improve that. Grammar would be a great thing to study as well, as I'm doing, but I hope to improve in it. And I see you guys in another video. Bye.